So what's the correct way to cook with the stainless steel pan? Are you supposed to start off with a hot pan and cold oil? Or is it a hot pan and hot oil? Are you supposed to rely on the Lidenfrost effect or learn by trial and error? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's dive in. The internet is a very unusual thing. Everyone has their opinions, and you either agree with my opinion or you don't. There's nothing in the middle. Life is never black and white. It's usually shades of gray or even in color. You usually can get the same results with different techniques. I mean, that's the beauty of cooking. That's the beauty of chefs, right? They manipulate the ingredients and the tools that they have to create really art that you eat. So today I wanted to address the misconception of you have to get to the Lidenfrost effect, or you should have a hot pan and cold oil, or a hot pan and hot oil. And that's the only way to cook with a stainless steel pan, and that's not true. I'm gonna go right to the bottom line here. There is no correct way. It all depends on what are you cooking. The best way to address the hot pan cold oil or hot pan hot oil thing is by doing a quick egg test. And from what I can tell, that kind of originated from non-stick properties, right? Everyone's trying to get non-stick pans with their stainless steel. And it's a lot easier than you guys think. We're gonna do the egg test. I'm gonna do it with a hot pan cold oil. We'll use the thermal imaging camera just for giggles to see what's going on. But I do want to start off by saying that I've kind of already addressed this thing partially when I was doing my carbon steel versus stainless steel, which one's more forgiving video. And that video really clearly shows that eggs are happiest when they're around 325, 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and then they naturally release. And if you do use the Lidenfrost effect, you're gonna overshoot that and you're gonna really burn your eggs. But we're gonna focus today on just hot pan, cold oil, hot pan, hot oil, and I'll show you guys why it always depends on what you're cooking. And then I'll talk about the results and what you should expect and kind of learn how to use the pan rather than listening to all the noise around you telling you how you should be using the pan when it's not always true. We started off with the hot pan and cold oil. We preheated the pan, added our oil, and then dumped in our eggs. Now, the point of this test is to show you that even though the eggs did not stick, the pan was still extremely hot, even with cold oil. Too hot for the eggs, and the eggs actually started burning. Let me show you what I mean. So even with a cold pan and cold oil, if you take it to the Lidenfrost effect, the pan is way too hot. Sure, it's very non-stick. I mean, the egg did not stick at all, but this egg is really burnt. Should've got a better spatula. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing, except this time we're gonna do a hot pan and hot oil. We're still gonna allow the pan to preheat properly, but when we dump the oil in, we're gonna allow the oil to get up to temperatures. I actually made a big mistake. I was preoccupied with filming and the pan was way too hot. The oil was smoking aggressively. This is avocado oil, which has a smoke point of 500 degrees Fahrenheit, and we well exceeded that. So I redid the test and made sure to pay attention this time and look for the oil just starting to smoke. And it was the same story. The pan and the oil were still way too hot for the egg. The egg didn't stick, but it was extra crispy. Okay, so we did cold oil and a hot pan, and then we did a hot pan and hot oil. And the reason why I want to do an egg test is because an egg test shows how delicate an egg is when you're cooking it. Sure, the pan was non-stick, but it was way too hot and it burnt the eggs. So it's kind of like this, one size fits all advice that people give isn't necessarily true. If you're trying to get a non-stick pan, that's fine, but if you want to burn your food, then you're gonna burn your food. Let's redo the test, but let's keep in mind that we're cooking eggs. And let's also keep in mind that eggs like to be cooked at, and they'll happily release at 325 to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So if we preheat our pan, which I always recommend you should preheat your pan, we drop in our oil, We don't want our oil to smoke because the smoking point of avocado oil is 520 degrees or something like that. 500 plus degrees. That's way too hot for eggs. So what if we preheat our pan, drop in our oil, lower our temperatures, and then cook the egg? I guarantee you the pan will still be nonstick and you're not gonna burn your eggs, you're gonna have delicious eggs. So let's try that. Okay, let's do things the right way. I'm gonna preheat the pan, but I'm gonna lower the temperatures before adding in my oil. And you're also gonna notice that I'm lifting the pan up, allowing it to cool faster. And then I'm gonna put in my egg. Now you're probably thinking, hey, your pan's too cold. No, actually it's not. The egg's bubbling up, it's cooking, it's happy. The only mistake I made here was the egg actually slid down to the corner, which annoyed me, so I was trying to get it out of the corner. The outdoor table I was using wasn't leveled, but other than that, the pan is non-stick. You're still getting a non-stick pan, but the difference is you're not getting a crispy, overcooked egg. If you want your egg a bit more crispy, turn up the heat a little bit. But watch your temperatures. Stainless steel can get away from you really quick. Okay, so what was the point of this video? Is there a right way to cook with stainless steel? Should you be following a very specific way to cook every single time? No. I think when people throw out techniques like the Lidenfrost effect, or you should cook with a hot pan and cold oil or whatever, they're making this very general statement that doesn't apply every single time. What you should be doing is learning how to cook with whatever it is that you're trying to cook. For example, the eggs was a very good test. So let me give you guys some examples. If I was searing a steak, absolutely, I would want a hot pan with hot oil. I'd want to take the oil just at or just below the smoking point. Usually what I personally do is I will watch for the oil smoking just a bit. Like I said, avocado oil usually smokes around 500 degrees, plus or minus whatever brand you have. But right when I see it smoking, I'll put my steak in there, leave the steak alone. I will adjust the temperatures as needed. Usually with my stainless steel pans, I never have to go above medium high or medium. I mean, that's plenty because stainless steel is very responsive, but it's also unforgiving and it can get away from you really, really quick. So if I need to drop the temperatures, I'll drop the temperatures. My house should not be smoking up. I should not be triggering smoke detectors or anything like that. And what I'll do is I'll watch for the steak to naturally release, and it will. Once it sears, once it's done, it will naturally release and you'll know when to flip it. If you're way too hot, you'll burn the steak. If you're way too cold, usually the steak won't sear and it'll stick to the pan. And that's what I mean by stainless steel. It's more of an expert tool. You got to get to know it. But let's say I'm cooking eggs. I'll preheat the pan. I may or may not let it get to the Lidenfrost effect. It depends, but whatever I end up doing as far as preheating, I will always lower the temperature, drop in my oil, and really, get the pan down, settle it down a bit, because eggs like to be cooked at around 325, 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll drop in my eggs and I'll make sure the pan's hot, and it'll be hot enough, but it won't be scorching hot. Something very quickly that I want to point out is you can see here where the egg's stuck. But once it reaches 350, 325 degrees Fahrenheit, it will naturally release, and that's what it did. So there's a little bit of stuck on egg, but the egg naturally releases on its own, just like when you're cooking a steak, once it hits its happy temperature. And they'll cook up beautifully. I mean, look at this egg. It's still nonstick. There's nothing wrong with this egg. It was beautiful. It was still nonstick. Yeah, there's a little bit of sticky pieces, but I'll take my spatula. They're coming right off. Look at that. Coming right off. So you need to understand what you're cooking. Some pans are more forgiving. That video that I did with carbon steel had a bigger window for you to make some mistakes. You could make some mistakes. You could have your pan too hot or too cold or whatever, and you still had a window of opportunity to adjust and salvage your mistakes. Stainless steel has a smaller window. So my advice to you is don't listen to all that internet noise and fluff and whatever, where people will tell you, you got to do it this way and you can only do it this way, and your pan was not at the Lidenfrost effect and blah, blah, blah. The only way you're going to learn is by experience, and eventually your mind will start to adjust and calculate by the techniques that you're using. Okay, I'm using a stainless steel pan. All right, I'm cooking an egg or a steak. Okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, and you'll make those adjustments. I still love my carbon steel and I still use it, but once you've mastered stainless steel, it's just really fun to use. That's it for me, guys. I hope you found this video informative, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody.